Attention! The National Weather Service has issued a hurricane warning for the entirety of the National Hockey League. Please stay tuned for further information from the Storm Cellar.
Welcome back to the Storm Cellar. It has been just over a month since we've recorded, but thankfully hockey is actually back. If you can count the rookie showcase, if you want to count the games in Australia, it is wonderful to start to turn the corner. The preseason is finally upon us in just a couple of days. September 26th, 2 days away, we have Tampa Bay at Carolina. Ray, how are things up in the Great White North?
It's going well. We're jonesing, right? Just like everyone else. Everyone's jonesing for the hockey to get started and so forth. And we got a little taste with that Australia game, which we'll get a chance to talk about later. But yeah, things are going well. Aside from, all of it was one of these summers that, filled with smoke and turmoil. You know what I mean? Like that's the way it's been all. And the weather, the same for you guys, like your guys' weather.
It rained 13 out of 16 weekends, Ray.
That's nuts, man. You could be able to steal the summer joke that I use for Calgary all the time, which everyone asks me, hey, how's summer there in Calgary? Oh, it's a beautiful half hour. And it sounds like that's what you guys have too, because 13?
You can relate, right? So most of our listeners obviously are from in and around the Carolinas, Virginia, South Carolina area.
Yeah.
For Ray and I, winter starts in like a month. It'll be dark at 4 o'clock. It'll be cold. It's nasty out. So we're inside like 6 months of the year. Winter's a long time up here. So to not get out and do things, as much as you would want to because of the rain and stuff, it's kind of brutal.
Yeah, it absolutely is. But look, hockey season. We can't wait. And it's been a minute since you and I have had a chance to talk about things. So let's jump into it here. I don't even know where to start, because even though there hasn't been a lot, there's a few things that have been going on either like in the off season and stuff like that we haven't had a chance to talk about.
Yeah, there's not a depth of things going on, but there is a breadth of things going on, right? There's a million little things that we can talk about. Where I thought we would do is start. Let's step back. Let's take an overall, like a holistic look at the franchise. Where are we starting today, right? Going into 23-24 versus the pre-Rod Brind'Amour era. It's only been, 5-ish years.
Yeah.
But I feel like if you were to tell us any Caniac 5 or 6 years ago, you would be the Vegas odds favorite to win the Cup. You would have perhaps the best Canes lineup of all time getting ready to take the ice. And we still haven't even trimmed it down. So we still don't know who the finalists are going to be on the 23-man roster. But if you'd have said that 6 years ago, I would have told you were nuts. I'd have been like, I'll just be happy if we're like squeaking in the playoffs. You know what I mean?
That's a good way to put it, because I think for the first time in franchise history, and this is all the way back even to the Whalers, the odds-on favorite to win it all. There's, around Calgary, people see me wearing my gear and stuff like that, and even like Calgarians just off the street, boom, hey man, the Hurricanes look great, odds on favorite to win the Cup, right? And they would never admit that normally. And I got to thinking about it, and it is, even these last couple of years when we've been great, we've never been considered the favorite. And the reason why we are considered the favorite have a lot to do with the moves that happened over the summer. And we're in some like weird situations, like we're overloaded on defense, right? This training camp, which is, already underway, it's got to be fierce, isn't it? Because all of the D we're going to be, well, not all of the D are going to be fighting for the spot, but there's a few spots there that are going to be very, very precious. And everyone's got to make a statement to get onto the team. And we're loaded for bear. We're looking great.
They really are.
It's amazing. It's amazing. So I'm really looking forward to this for sure.
Yeah. And we'll come back to training camp. I think we'll do that last because that's obviously the most recent thing. We have actual games coming up here in a few minutes.
Yep.
To back up half a step, the franchise, I think, is in a position, like I said, nobody would have imagined 5 or 6 years ago. And that's, I think the way to best exemplify that is we haven't talked, it's been a month, so we haven't talked about the 20-year lease extension on PNC Arena.
Man, that's sweet.
They're talking about adding 100,000 square feet of retail dining space, 150,000 square feet of office space, 200 multifamily residential units, a hotel, a 5,000 seat indoor music arena. Tom is basically putting his money where his mouth is, along with the Centennial Authority, to say we're committed to staying here. We are going to find ways to increase revenues and make sure that the Hurricanes aren't going anywhere for a very long time. And I've seen the plans, and I know for a while, especially the Wolfpack fans worried about their tailgating and whatnot. None of that's going away. There's every time I see that, I laugh because I'm like, the people who complain about that, I'm like, have you ever actually tailgated? Do you have any idea how much space there is around Carter Finley Stadium and PNC? Like, there is a ton of space. I don't think people really understand how much space there is.
Yeah.
You're going to get all those for PNC side of things. You're still going to get to tailgate, all those things. That they even said, like, we are going to probably put in a parking deck, but we're going to reserve tailgating lots. Like, we're going to make sure that there are places for you to tailgate. Like, that's not going to go away. Maybe you'll have to walk a little further to get to the arena from your tailgate, but so what? It's not a hard walk now. It's 2 or 3 minutes.
Yeah.
Not a big deal. But
I wonder if I'm sorry, Brad, I don't mean to jump in here, but I wonder if the freak out on that has anything to do with the Stadium Series and how massive that was. Like, look, if you put all of those things up, the housing, the theater, and everything up, you're not going to be able to have the monstrosity, the vast tailgate event like that. We're going to use up a little bit of that space. But the fact that he's made a point of saying we are making sure that there's space to tailgate says so much about the culture of the game and the team and the fans. You know what I mean? Like,
absolutely.
This is important, and they're recognizing it and holding on to it.
And it's just a shift. So you bring up a good point. All those people come in 60,000 plus for a hockey game at Carter Finley. Right now, if you go to a Hurricanes game, all the lots around PNC Arena fill up, and then people will park in the Carter Finley lots as overflow or to try and get around paying to park. I think parking went up to $40 this year. It's been $40 and $50 for Red Sox and Bruins games since I've lived up here. So welcome to the big leagues, Carolina.
Yeah,
this is part of it, I'm afraid. But all that's going to happen is the area immediately around PNC is going to start being built up, which just means parking is just going to shift. You're just going to shift from the PNC lots. You're going to shift more people over to the Carter Finley lots. That's all that's really going to happen. For a PNC Arena game, you couldn't fill up the Carter Finley lots. You like there's way more lots than there is, in spaces for cars than there is for people in PNC. So tailgating is not an issue. So I don't want folks to sweat about that. The big part there is it's the commitment by both the Centennial Authority, the city of Raleigh, Tom Dundon, that the Hurricanes are here to stay. And, with this kind of investment, they're going to be competitive. Tom has spent to the cap. He gets a reputation for being cheap. We've certainly called him out for things like his offer to Chuck Kay, his offer to John Forsland. But that's not him being cheap. That's him saying, I don't value those things as much as what's on the ice. And it's been effective. I don't have to. I think they did Chuck Kay dirty, but that doesn't mean that they didn't put together one heck of a hockey team. If he's going to spend $1 million, like, I don't like it, but I can't disagree with it either. You know what I mean?
Yeah, very. I mean, it's the product on the ice, and it's what makes the expansion and the development even possible. You know what I mean? Like the fact that it's just a statement that it's there, hockey is there to stay, like you said, so adequately. Yeah, you know what? It's a joy. Everyone can breathe a sigh of relief because things get tight everywhere when we start talking about leases coming up and stuff like that, right? Like it's the minutia behind the curtain things that people are trying to get. Don't get people in Calgary started about what they're trying to do to get a new building here. I mean, it's a soap opera that's been going on for
Mm.
a few years now.
Yeah, and you
To
guys desperately need it too. I mean,
Yeah, oh my gosh, Saddle Dome is a dump. It's I mean
for those
look
of you who don't know, if you've been to Dorton Arena, just make it like 6 times bigger, and that's the Saddle Dome.
oh,
And I don't mean make it nicer; I just mean make it bigger.
yeah, it's oh my, it's terrible. You know what I mean? Like, look, there's history there and stuff, and it was great. It was built for the Olympics in '88, and that was all great, right? But it they need a new building in the worst way.
Right. Absolutely. So, new lease, new outlook for the team. And to go along with that, let's talk rookie showcase for a little bit. I got to watch just bits and pieces because it was, during work hours and whatnot. But the Hurricanes ended up going 3-0 against the Panthers, the Preds, and the Lightning. And Ryan Suzuki, who some people may or may not realize that he has some vision impairment from an injury he took. That's one of the things that's kept him out, even of the AHL when the Wolves were winning the Cup. And if you haven't seen the highlights from the rookie showcase, please go watch them because Suzuki put a couple of moves on guys that just made you kind of go, wow. And granted, it's rookies on rookies, right? So
Sure.
it's not, what I mentioned about Connor Bedard. Bedard scores a hat trick in his first game in his rookie showcase. And
Mhm.
and I kind of went, everybody's hyping this up, but like he's the potentially like one of the top 10 players in the world already. If he didn't score a hat trick, that's much more impressive,
More
right?
the story.
Right, that's more the fact he scored a hat trick is not surprising at all. If he hadn't scored a hat trick, I'd be worried. But and Ryan Suzuki's not there. Don't get me wrong, but Suzuki, Gunler, Ponomarov, a couple of those other guys really made some outstanding plays. And I know some fans who say, hey, if you think any of these AHL up and comers, Suzuki, Ponyo, those guys are going to make an impact and be on the roster, I think you're crazy because Rod has these veterans and they're trying to win a cup. And I don't disagree with that, but some of these guys I think deserve a look over some of the people who are on the roster.
Mm.
We don't know exactly yet what Rod is building, but I can say that guys like Jamison Reeves, right? Honka would be one, not quite as much. Ponyo would definitely be somebody I'd be looking at deeply. These guys are good hockey players. Maybe they're depth guys. Jack Drury, who I think is just fantastic. I love him. Like he's probably going to end up being a fourth line center in the league, whether it's in Carolina or elsewhere. He's already asked for a trade once because he wasn't in the ice time. I don't know that you couldn't replace him with one of these other fellas, particularly Ponyo.
Yeah.
Going forward, I mean, as much as I like Jack, I don't know that he's played better than Vasily. So, there was a lot of good. There was a lot of good to come out of those games. Did you get a chance to watch them at all, or catch the highlights?
I caught. I'm kind of a couple of highlights and stuff. I caught. Couldn't see the games. But I will say this: the rookie tournament did one thing, and from the highlights that I saw, it gave me a little peek into our future, which remains bright. It's a reassertion of the type of scouting that we do. And the players that we are getting are just very super talented, and it means great things in the future. I like that. I've kind of put those rookies off to the side, and my main focus has been the team, like and like most of us already have, and especially now that we are considered the favorites. those players are great, and it's a very bright future, no matter what. And even so, even if they're, knock on wood, no injuries, or even if there are injuries, there's talent to come up. You know what I mean? Like, we're in a great spot. That's what the
Right.
rookie tournament told me for sure.
And you just spoke so injuries. So the person I was just saying, the one person made a watch, right? Vasily Ponomarev, Ponyo, as I call him, or people call him other things than that. But if you like Ghibli Studios, I think Ponyo fits. He tweaks his knee. So one of the guys who probably was trying to fight for a roster spot is now out of camp temporarily with a tweak in the knee. It doesn't sound too serious. However, the Hurricanes, I think, had 42 skaters and 5 tendies at camp, right? Ponyo is out with an injury. Jacob Vondras, who's one of the goalies, he has already been assigned to the Sudbury Wolves. So they're down to, at the moment, still have 42 skaters on the roster. You're down to 4 goaltenders. I don't think goaltending, I think we both agree, goaltending is set to 3 guys, right? It's going to be Anderson, Ranta, Kochetkov.
Done.
Vondras is out, and Peretz is not going to make. So goaltending, I think you kind of know what's going to go on there. I fully expect to see Kochetkov up with the big club, at least for parts of the season.
Sure.
Because I fully expect Ranta and Anderson to get hurt, as they typically have over time. I don't see either of those guys, coming up with 40 or games or so. So it's going to be a split. The question is, where does he go? Right? We don't have an AHL affiliate.
Yeah, that's kind of a crazy thing, isn't it?
And they said, we're going to figure out where we're going to put guys, come October. So, Don has a week. It certainly came out in the media that looks like that Tom was willing to just buy a 33rd AHL franchise. And they said, we don't want there to be a mismatch. But you're already allowing a mismatch because you're allowing the Wolves to go without an NHL team.
Exactly.
So your logic makes no sense, AHL.
Yeah.
And the price, the price that was kicked about was like $10 million. That's pocket change.
Yes.
I think it was Deb on Twitter, and I went back and forth, and I was like, that's the interest. That's the principal he has in the bank and stocks and bonds. $10 million to him is just interest money. It's not real money. He could do that in a heartbeat. It wouldn't be a big deal, right? They own the Ice Caps rights and logos. Yes. They could do that and put a new Ice Caps team anywhere they want. And there are places in Carolina that I think that Raleigh, I think, could do both the Hurricanes and the Ice Caps at this point. They didn't think that was a good idea in 97, but I think that would work. More importantly, I would put them somewhere I would put them back in Greensboro. Greensboro got onto hockey and then kind of had it pulled out from under them a little bit. And then they've had other teams, don't get me wrong. You've had the Thunderbirds and some other teams in that area. However, wouldn't it be cool to have the AHL Ice Caps in Greensboro, just a stone's throw away?
Man, oh man.
That'd be sweet.
Yeah, that would be fantastic, and another reaffirmation of what hockey is like in this area, and worth it, right? So yeah, they got to get that figured out. It's going to be, that's what I think a lot of people are sitting on right now. Is, sure, the team looks great and we're ready to go, but what are we going to do with all of this talent, and where do we put them? And they are, like you said, it's 1 week away. 1 week away. Right. They got to figure that out.
And you got to get from 42 skaters down to, 21.
There's a big chop coming.
20 if you're keeping 3 goalies.
Yeah. There's a big chop coming. And
we have a lot of guys on PTOs that aren't, they're going to be on PTOs. They're going to get a chance at camp. They're going away. I'm sorry. I don't know of anybody on a PTO that's going to make the team. Zach Aston Reese was one that I was surprised of, because that guy used to be, maybe my memory is faulty, but a heck of a defensive forward.
Mm-hmm.
And, I was like, wow, he's available on a PTO. That would be the one person I could think of from a PTO that I went, I wonder if he could play enough to stick.
Yeah, or work his way on, right?
That he would be the one. Other than that, just to look at kind of the opening to training camp, you had Bunting and Jarvis with Aho at center. I think that makes sense.
It
right? Because
totally
it was,
makes
where's
sense.
Bunting going to go?
Yeah.
Then you have KK centering Natchez and Svechnikov. Don't
Beautiful.
change that. That line was a hell of a line last year when they were
It
together.
was absolutely.
To me, the weirdness comes down into the third line. So you got Stahl and Martinuk. 2/3 of that line is back. But instead of Fast, they started with Tavo. And that's not Tavo's role, but he does bring skill to the third line. Does that make them more dangerous? And he's a good defensive forward. Like, does that just make that line a little more offensively dangerous without really pulling back from their defensive capabilities?
That, you know what, having Turbo there, what I wondered in all of this is where Turbo would land because of the
Because of last
additions,
year, right?
because of last year,
Yeah.
everything. Where is he going to go? And fourth line just didn't seem right. I think the third line is very intriguing because with guys like Stahl and Martinuk, who is a puck retrieval specialist, they'll be able to gather the puck and do things and set him up in good spots to score. Now, Tavo doesn't shoot as much as you and I like. We've said that
Amen.
before. He needs to shoot more. And so this might be an opportunity to get him to shoot more, as he is the guy who will be not necessarily in the corners digging up the puck, but, you know, circling around the 8++ scoring zones to deposit, you know, the passes, right?
He's
could be
clearly
a
the
bot.
scoring member of that line. If you're
Yeah.
saying which one of these guys should be netting goals, it's Tavo.
Yeah. And Quickie, I thought Quickie would be, I didn't think that would be something that you would mess with, but I mean, it just shows the depth of the team. It's
Right.
so deep.
And I wonder if so Rod is known for playing the two-way system. It's one of the reasons why Sebastian Aho is not a 100-point guy every year. It's because he's so good defensively, and that's what the position requires because of the coach. So I wonder if Brendan Moore isn't giving up a little bit of that defensive prowess. Not a lot.
No.
Not a lot, just a little bit, in order to capitalize with a little more scoring punch, because you drop Thost down to the fourth line with Nosen being with Nazen every year. What I promise. I'm sorry, Nazen. I promise. It's not on purpose. Centered by Jack Drury, that's how camp started. And I even say maybe you get Ponyo or somebody else in that fourth line spot, depending on what goes on. And then Brendan Lemieux is the odd man out. But that gives you another guy who can score on the fourth line because Stefan Nazen has shown he can put the puck in the net. And now most of that has been power play time, which is fantastic. Keep him on the fourth line, let him get a few minutes in, and then stick him out there to put his butt in front of the net. Wonderful, right? I couldn't be happier about that.
This is like when you mentioned Lemieux being there as well, and the whole thought about Bunting being on the team. This team, I don't know, when you look at it now, it's grittier.
It is.
It's an angrier. It's going to be an angrier team. I think. Yeah.
Go ahead.
No. I just think we're shifting gears a little bit where there might be more knuckles chucked this year. There might be more. I mean, I can't imagine there being more penalties because for some reason we just got just knackered with all the penalties that we
right,
on a regular basis, right? We don't need to prove how good the penalty killing is, guys, all the time. But this season's going to be a different style of game.
I agree. And to pat us both on the back a little bit, we said, I think for the past 2 years, 100% for the last year, that there seems to be an arc, right? Tampa Bay is the best example. Tampa Bay had the skill, and they weren't winning cups. Mm-hmm. And then they got a little grittier, and they went a little further, and they got a little closer, and they didn't win cups. And then they got a little grittier and a little tougher, and then they started winning cups, and then they had, 4?
Yeah,
3, right? the Hurricanes have followed that model. And I said last year that they're following Tampa Bay's lead. They need to get a little tougher. They need to show guys you can't just push us around.
Yep.
And that's how Tampa Bay took it to the next level and then kicked off, 3 Stanley Cups. And Bunting is a guy who for those Caniacs who don't know, and we're kind of like the party. So a lot of this has probably been rehashed, via our, the other podcast and in the media.
Sure they have.
But,
yeah.
Bunting's a guy who can take penalties. Like, he does take penalties. We need him and Svechnikov not to do that. Brendan Lemieux is a guy he was brought in for toughness. Okay. Totally. He's not going to punch you, get a lot of points. He was brought in
to play Florida.
He was, exactly.
You know what I mean? Like, to play Florida, to play, not necessarily the Islanders, but look back into the playoffs last year and you see that the way teams played against Carolina with, and a chance to stay in, they got so physical and they were chippy and just on the edge of dirty, you know what I mean? And there was no response, and it eventually wore the team down. You know what I mean? Like, and especially if the penalties aren't going to be called. That's the other thing. The playoff hockey is not the same as regular season, which makes no sense because the rules are the same. You don't play under a different rule book in the playoffs, but the type of game is different. And we just needed a response there. There was no question.
100. Yeah. And, gone are the days of the Hurricanes having a Stu Grimson, a true enforcer, a guy who can just go out there and chuck knuckles and just put, the fear of God into people.
Yeah.
Brendan Lemieux is about as close as they've had, I would say, to an enforcer in several years.
Yeah.
We've had a few guys in the past. I'm thinking of like Jesse Boulerice, back in the early 2000s. We've had some of those guys who could play some and who were tough. They brought in Max Domi, but Max isn't his dad, right?
No.
So it's, there's a difference there. On the defensive side, and this makes me smile for the most part, on defense, because we have 400 defensemen, but to start training camp, you got Slavin and Burns. Then you have Brett Pesce, who's basically been pulled off the market, at least temporarily. They're like, we're going to go with him. And if that helps us win a cup, then that's the right decision, even if you lose him and then a year for nothing. So you get Pesce and Shea back together, That's a fantastic top 4. And then right now it's Orlov and D'Angelo. And Orlov is a multi-million dollar third line D-man right now, which is just nuts. But that's how good the Hurricanes are on defense. I would prefer Chatfield in over D'Angelo. And then you have Chatfield and Coghlan are kind of the odd men out right now. As good as Chatfield and as much speed as he had last year, I don't think that D'Angelo's offensive upside overtakes Chatfield's defensive prowess. But I know what they're doing, right? They're looking for a way to kickstart the power play because the power play can't continue to be brutal and win a cup.
I think the fact that Orlov's involved was your answer. Like, I think he was the answer. He was the second line, second power play, quarterback. Like, that's the guy that you want. The only thing that I could see where D'Angelo fits is we do 7 defensemen, and you play 7 defensemen, and the only time that he gets on the ice, the only time is on the power play. That would be my suggestion.
Yeah. And because
Chatfield is too good to leave in the stands. Too good defensively. He's quick. He's coming along. This is a guy you want to hold on to, and you don't want to short him.
He's got the wheels that I love, because when there is a defensive lapse, how many times did he get back and still cover last year? Just every time.
A lot of times, yep.
And to your point, so looking at the original power play units for camp, a little bit of a switch up here. So you have Aho, Svechnikov, and Jarvis, along with Burns and D'Angelo. So you have two defensemen, two very offensive-minded defensemen on power play one. And as much as that excites me from a goal-scoring perspective, it makes me a little worried because both of those guys have lapses. And we
take
don't
chances.
The Hurricanes are continually one of the teams that scores a lot of shorthanded goals. I do not want us to become one of those teams that gives up a lot of shorthanded goals.
Yeah.
And then on two, Natchez, Bunting, Teravainen, Nazin, and Orlov, which to me makes tons of sense.
Yeah.
Because I'm with you. Like, I thought we brought in Orlov to quarterback PP2 while Burns did power play one. And then we load up with the firepower. We put somebody who's going to stand in front of the net the whole time. You have that in Nazin. You're going to have to get that from Svechnikov or Jarvis. And those guys have been willing to muck it up. So,
yep.
So the defensively is still where I'm most concerned. The forwards we have, I think you can interchange some, bits and pieces, and you can swap lines around. I feel very comfortable with the top 12 of what we saw at open training camp.
Yeah.
Like I said, Drury maybe is the odd man out on that one. But it's his spot, to lose.
His spot to lose, yeah.
So and Jack has more he can give us. Jack's never going to be a 1C, 2C, but can he be a 3C, 4C? Absolutely. He's still a young guy, nice as can be. So I'm rooting for him, right? But defense, I just, and it's not that I even have questions if they played the people that I would play. My question is balancing offense and defense. Because if you go look at NHL stats right now and you look at who made the playoffs, it's every team that had a positive goal differential last year made the playoffs.
Yeah.
I think only one team that had a negative goal differential made the playoffs, and that might have been even. I'm not going to go look it up right now, but they were within a couple of goals over the entire season, right? So the way you get in the playoffs is you simply score more goals than you give up.
Yeah.
And I have concerns about leaky D. Now, even with D'Angelo on the third pair with Orlov, Rod can double shift Slave and Burns to his heart's content. Burns still, is a guy who plays more minutes than anybody. When he came over from the Sharks, he was their highest TOI guy, right? Time on ice.
Yeah.
So I'm not worried if that makes sense. But the Hurricanes are playing at a level now where sometimes nitpicky, or maybe, maybe whatever's a little less than nitpicky. Those are the problems we have right now. This isn't, the 2007, 2008 Hurricanes who missed the playoffs, right?
Yeah.
And you could and there was no nitpicky. There was just some things that just weren't good, right? So we have to pick and choose our battles. But overall, as the D Corp, I mean, or even as the whole team, like, would you agree this might be on paper the best Hurricanes team that's ever been assembled?
It's by far the deepest, the most talented. Just add every superlative really to this point. And I've been going back into my mental Rolodex there about even in the years in Hartford and stuff where it had great squads that looked positive and performed well. They just don't match up. They don't match up to a lineup this deep, this talented, this skillful. And I'm looking forward to this season. Although you brought something up, and I'm going to circle back to it and it's about our D, and it's about Pesce specifically. You and I both know that there's no GM in the league that is, really willing to let someone go for nothing. That a deal will have to be made. My question to you at this point is, after the trade deadline, is Pesce or Shea with the team?
Ouch.
This is a tough one, right?
I think, I know this is a wishy-washy answer. It depends.
Sure.
If they're clicking on all cylinders and they feel really confident that they not just are expected to be the best team to vie for a cup, but that they really are in that position, I don't know that they make the change. I think they go and win the cup and worry about the ramifications of just losing Pesci outright later.
Yeah.
And I've said all along, no offense to the Brady Shea fans, if I have to move one of those two guys to make space, now and Pesci was an offensive. I'm sorry, Shea was an offensive monster last year and had
He
his
was.
best. And he said already this, I'm going to look to shoot more this year, right? I'm looking to do more. But if I have to lose one of those two guys, I would rather lose Shea, particularly when we have, such an offensively focused, defense.
Yeah.
That you want to pair those with strong defensive guys. And if I'm being selfish, Brett Pesci and guys like Jacob Slavin have been here through the hard times, and now they've been here through the good times. And purely selfishly, those guys deserve to win a cup in Carolina.
Yes.
If Carolina is going to lift the cup and one of those guys isn't there, I'm going to feel awful for them because they've put up and thought through and worked hard as core pieces of this rebuilding this team and getting them where. And I want to see those guys lift a cup in Carolina. Just and if we lose out, on getting a return for him later, I'm willing to sacrifice that because they're deep, right? They're already deep. Could you get something good for Pesci? You definitely could, but
no question.
But those guys have, in my opinion, should Carolina lift the cup this year, those guys have sacrificed and earned to be able to do that. I would feel just awful if somebody like Pesci got moved at the trade deadline and then went on to watch the Hurricanes win a cup. I mean, I would feel just awful for him.
Yeah, you and me both, and that's the emotion of
right.
fandom and the emotion that I don't know if I have the capability of detaching, because as much as the fans love these players and stuff, the organization loves them. They have an extra level connection to the players, right? We say we, quote unquote, love them and think the best of them and stuff. These are friends. They you know what I mean? Like, they develop bonds of people that they've seen of, and as you said, like, through some really terrible hockey, like really terrible hockey, and they're coming out on the other side, and they're this close. They're this close, Brad, and to send them away at that, I don't know that I'd have the capability of doing it. Like,
that's
I
why we're
just
not
want
GMs.
everyone. Yeah, exactly. That's why we're not GMs. And further to that, it's why I desperately want the agent and everyone to just come to their senses and get him signed and be done with it. Because there
That'd
are
be nice.
other ones that you can let go in a heartbeat. You could still trade away. Like, honestly, get him signed. I want to see him lift a cup in the worst way.
Yeah, and that really is what separates a good general manager from the rest of us. Because you and I we've made a lot of good calls on player movement and the things we would do. I think overall, I think we do better than average, right? But when it comes to something like that's a hard, and I get it, right? It's one of those emotional things. Like, I'll be upset and then I'll get over it. But it always reminds me of like Herb Brooks and Miracle. It's like he came to so close and then not get it. Like, that's the job of the GM, is to say, Brett's been here and he's been the guy and all, but in the end, my job is to win a Stanley Cup.
Yeah,
and that's what I have to do, and that's good on Don for getting that right, and Eric Tulsky too,
and for the lovely Caniacs and jerks out there that take the time to invest in listening to the two of us pontificate and try to figure things out. I'm directing a question to you all now. Ask yourselves the question: if the Canes had to trade in your favorite player, insert name here, to win the cup, would you do it? And that's so tough, isn't it? Like, it would be like asking me, okay, Raymond, you have to relive the pain and agony of losing Ron Francis as a Whaler to the Pittsburgh Penguins, you now have to relive that by losing Francis 2.0, aka Seabass,
Mm-hmm.
Fishy, Aho. Would you be willing to do it? And I don't know that I have that. I don't know that I have that. I want a cup in the worst way, but you don't understand the pain, the emotional pain that I suffered with Francis.
I have a feeling you're on the side with the majority, Ray, because we've asked this question before, and there were a lot more people than I thought, and it might have been over half that said, as long as they're competitive and they're playing good hockey and it's fun, that's more important to me than a cup. And I wonder if that's a generational thing. Like we're old enough that we're old men, and for younger fans who are getting into it, because I feel like when you and I grew up, sports, particularly for men, was a big deal, right? I was expected to play sports because I was a boy.
Oh, no question.
And we've gotten away from that. So one is a lot more women play sports now, and the new PWHL Women's League is firing up. I can't wait for that to get kicked off and for us to find out some team names and things. But I also think that sports is less central to a lot of people's lives now.
Yeah.
In that, it used to be every week was, Sunday was football, for my dad, right?
Yeah.
And he didn't do baseball and hockey, but for whatever, for whoever it was, you had your sport and you followed the team and the championship was the goal. And I feel like now, because there's so many other things going on in our lives, and we're so connected and there's so much to do, I feel like even for the hardcore fans, like the experience has become more important than the goal, assuming the goal is a Stanley Cup. So I don't think you're in the minority, my friend. If you ask me today, Brad, would you trade Andrei Svechnikov for a Stanley Cup? I'm with you. I don't know that I could do it. But if you said like 2 in a row, Andre would be wearing other colors. I mean, it's, because I could still watch him, right? I could still enjoy him. He's just not on our team. But the exhilaration, the feelings that come when Rod Brindamore lifted that cup.
Oh,
and even before it, when Justin Williams netted that empty net goal to seal it, and you knew it was done. Everybody knew it was over at that point. I mean, I remember you could spend your whole life chasing the high like that and never get it again.
Never.
And it's crazy because it wasn't even something like that we had done, but because it's a small market and because, the fans and the team are so close, like you felt like you were part of that, right? Brad, making it the loudest house.
I know. I got goosebumps too. And now I'm going to put another tough question to you. Is the next one going to feel as great as the first one?
Yes. And
really better or
I don't know if it'll be better or worse. It'll be different, but will it be as exciting? My answer is 100% yes. And for me, that's because this one I'll get to enjoy with my son, who is gone from being a didn't really watch hockey to watch a little bit of hockey and like the Bruins to no longer liking the Bruins and watching the Hurricanes to now. Hopefully he won't hear this, but we are planning a vacation in Florida in a couple of months. And I was like, I wonder if the Hurricanes are playing while we're down there, and they are.
Oh,
and we'll be down in Anna Maria Island, which is right just south of Tampa, and the Hurricanes play the Lightning while we're down there.
Nice.
And I think we're gonna go. I don't get to see him in Raleigh, right? Because I'm in Boston, and the tickets to go see him in Boston are nuts. And some of that's because it's the Bruins, and some of that's because they are a top flight team, and people want to see Aho. Yeah. They want to see Svechnikov. They want to see Natchez. So the tickets in Tampa are like a third of the price of what I would pay in Boston. And so, as long as the people in Tampa are going to kick me out for wearing a Canes jersey like they used to do, then I think we're going to go. But a new cup, it's been a long time, right? It's been, not quite 20 years. And it will feel the only way it might feel different for me, Ray, is if I can't be in the building this time, will feel different, right? It won't be any less special, but being there, going through it was perhaps a once in a lifetime experience. If they make it that far, I hope it's a twice in a lifetime experience. but to have my son there that will make it, that's his first Stanley Cup, right?
Yeah.
That's going to make it for me. What about yourself? What do you think?
For me, I don't know that the first one could ever be topped, but I will say this. The next one, it kind of the same but different, as you kind of alluded to in your answer. For me, it'll be different because we're coming at it from a position of, greatness. This franchise has been, I mean, it's always been legit, but it's been a powerhouse now since Rod came around. And the fact that it continues to be that way, there's a little more swagger to it. I hope you
Right.
understand what I'm getting at.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
There's more swagger to this. There's more whatever. Yeah, we told you so. There's that first one that you'll never. I don't think you could ever duplicate the very first one. The picture of Rod hoisting that cup, I get shivers every time I think of it, almost to tears. And it was my first. It was my where my team won in a place like Canada, where everyone thinks your team's a joke, where everyone, you know what I mean? And I was working for the Edmonton Oiler radio broadcasting team at the time. You don't understand and the Oilers, it's who they beat too. Like, that's another thing.
Yeah, that you got that whole extra connection to
it. There was everything to it. So there won't be one like the first. It probably won't be as great, but I will celebrate hard from a different vantage point, because no one saw the Hurricanes coming. As good as the Hurricanes were in 2006,
they came out of left field still.
They did,
because it was coming off the lockout year, right? That they were built for speed, and the NHL decided to crack down on the hooking and the grabbing and things, in which a team with speed had an advantage, and it just worked.
And you know what? Here's the other thing. It's gonna feel different this time, because now I expect them to win.
Right. They're not going into this as the underdogs.
Yeah,
they'll be portrayed that way throughout the year, but realistically, they know they're one of the best teams in the league.
They absolutely. And so there's a lot to break down there. I love throwing those good questions out that make you think and ponder and position yourself. Like, where would I be in this situation? And they could be very, very difficult questions. Like, good Lord.
I think, because I remember so many specific details about that first cup win, but some of it's a blur. And I feel like this time I'm old enough and patient enough that I get to soak it in a little more, if that makes sense. Like, take my time and really kind of, because, if they make it to a cup finals, I'll be in Raleigh. If I don't get a ticket into the game, so be it. But there's no way I'm not going to be, I'll do what people did last time. The Oilers fans, I always give them compliments. Thousands of Oilers fans came to Raleigh without tickets. I was offered 10 or 15 times what my seats were worth by people, from Edmonton, just wanted to get in the game. And when they couldn't, they stayed, and the Hurricanes set up TVs, and there were thousands and thousands of people outside the arena, even who couldn't really watch, and they just wanted to be there. So what an amazing experience. And I think the city of Raleigh will see the same kind of jubilation, to go back to your original question.
Yeah.
Because now, much like with my son, I had kids at a later age than a lot of people. This time, the parents will be looking at the kids, because it'll be the kids' first cup, and the kids are going to drive it.
Oh my God.
And hockey's already exploded. You have high schools in Raleigh forming their own league without state support, because they want hockey to succeed. And a Stanley Cup would only make that grow. When people say hockey doesn't belong in the South, I always come back to things like that.
Yeah.
Because would it be great for a Canadian team to win a cup? Absolutely. It would be great for Canada to have a chance to do that again. But is it going to grow the game? And the answer is no, because if you live in Canada and you don't watch hockey, that's not like because you weren't aware of it. It's because you've already decided I'm not going to watch hockey, right?
Yeah.
But if you get another team in Carolina or Nashville or Arizona or any of these markets, people are going to go, oh, I didn't know they had a team, right? To this is really cool. What can I watch? Like, there's been more speculation about putting a team back in Atlanta. Third time's the charm.
I know, right?
And part of me goes, is it going to work? And then when I really look at the history of it, Atlanta didn't work in large part because the ownership group just wasn't good at what they were doing. So could the right ownership group make Atlanta? Yeah, that's a huge market. It's bigger than Raleigh.
It is. You're right.
And it's not that you need the entire market to show up. You need 20,000 diehards that'll show up week in and week out to watch.
For sure.
So, just, I don't know. It's an amazing time. It's a great question because my goodness, I
know we're getting a little bit ahead of ourselves. Look, it's
8 months ahead of ourselves.
That's a way, way far ahead of ourselves. We don't know what's coming, but man, it's fun to think about those situations. And it's going to be another great season. And I look at this lineup and that's how we got there, is because we're talking to this lineup that is far and away the best lineup that we'll ever be able to put together.
Yeah, this is like the third year in a row, I think, that we've been able to say that truthfully. Like, this is the best Hurricanes team thus far on paper.
And keeps getting better. Getting better. So it's going to be an interesting style. We kind of talked about that too. Like, the style of play you're going to see from the team is going to be different, and the grittier and stuff like that, and more physical. I just see that coming. So it's going to be interesting to see how it all meshes together in a nice cohesive unit.
I totally agree.
Lord Stanley.
Some people say the Hurricanes play a boring style of hockey because it is defensive minded. I don't agree with that, and it's going to be probably a little more defensive minded in some ways. But if Rod can loosen the reins a little bit and just get a little more of that individuality to shine through with guys like Aho and Svechnikov and Ignatius, and then they're on to something special, I think.
Brad, I've never understood that. I
don't agree. I understand the point, but I don't agree with it. Yeah.
Yeah. Wait a minute. You guys are saying it's boring to see entire lines fully committed to continuous, relentless, punishing forechecking that creates chances to score. How in the world is that boring? To see the guys giving their everything 100% the whole time, not like guys that aren't afraid to go in and puck retrieval is one of the things that I love so much about Martinook. It doesn't matter who's back there on defense. He wants to turn them around and go digging and fighting for the puck because he knows there's a time he's going to be able to create a chance out of it. There's benefits to it, and everyone's on board. Everyone's on board. I don't get the boring part. There's nothing boring about watching that hard work and just effort on 200 feet of ice. It's just
they averaged 3.2 goals for last year. The league leaders were the Oilers at just under 4. They had 3.96.
Yeah.
So how you can be in the top third of the league in goals for and putting points up, and people to talk about the defensive boringness of the hockey, like, we get it. Like, it is a system, right? I understand some of the complaints. Like, you're not going to get the highlight reel goals as often from the Hurricanes as you do McDavid or Draisaitl.
Well, you're right.
But who's closer to winning a cup? It's not McDavid and Draisaitl.
Well,
unless they get shipped out.
It's funny. There's a lot of people that say 2006 is what it's going to look like again. We've seen people making comments that it is the Edmonton Oilers that are going to come out of the West, and it is going to be Carolina, and they're going to have a rematch.
I'm down.
And I'm down with that too, because I'm going to feel bad for McDavid because Slavelin's going to be putting
In
him
this kitchen,
in
baby.
his place all night long, every night. It's going to be amazing. But let's not get too far ahead of ourselves. We got a training camp game coming up, which means nothing, but it's fun. It'll be fun to see who they put out there and stuff like that, and we'll see where we're at. The taste, it's coming. We're going to get to see some hockey very soon, my friend.
2 days,
Oh
2 days, my friend.
yeah.
Tampa Bay, Carolina, 7 p.m. And then it's kind of, we have some back-to-backs, right? We have the 27th, which is the community day. You can get in
Yep.
for a $10 donation if there's still tickets available.
Oof.
And then the reason that we have 42 players and 4 now goaltenders is because of September 29th. And that is when the Hurricanes are taking on the Florida Panthers and the Tampa Bay Lightning,
Oh
with
yes,
Rod
the
coaching
split
one
squad.
team and Jeff Daniels coaching the other. And I think those teams would have a better shot if they just combine. Like, they should put together their top 12 forwards and their top 6D and just face off against us, and let's see where we end up.
Yeah, this is going to be interesting. Have we had many split squad games in the past? Is that a standard? I mean, I know
I
that
can't
it's
remember
happened.
one. I mean, I'm sure we have, but
Yeah, I
not that
know it's
brought the
happened
ring a
in.
bell.
I know it's happened with the Oilers and stuff like that. They got a lot of people. They'll split up the teams and they'll make sure it's like Edmonton versus Calgary and Edmonton, Winnipeg, or
Mm-hmm.
or Vancouver or whatever. They'll split the squad up, and especially in the early part, because they really want to see, they want to see everyone in
Right.
games. So it's going to be interesting. So much to talk about. I'm loving this.
I'm so glad that next week we get to talk about real games. Not real
Yes.
official games, but at least like actual Hurricanes games with the
Yeah.
Hurricanes on the ice. It's not just will be the rookies. So just want to take a second to thank everybody who listens to us. We took more of the summer off than we had intended to for a lot of different reasons. But
Yep.
now that the season is back, we're going to be back, right and regular. Trying to record every Sunday and get this out Sunday afternoons for you. So, yeah, just looking forward to a new season. Like, I'm excited. The kiddo is excited. I got all the jerseys I need. Luckily, I think if you're going to buy a jersey, this is the last year of the Adidas deal. I'm not saying
yes.
Fanatics is terrible. I've been lucky with the Fanatics jerseys I've gotten. I've been happy with them and the quality. Yeah. I always buy them on sale, so I never pay full price, and I've always been happy with them. But if you look at what other teams have been going through, I mean, it makes you worry a little bit. So now is a good time to buy a Hurricanes jersey from Adidas if you want something. Get it in, because we just don't know what we're going to get with the Fanatics Authentics. So
yeah, 100%. And we'll also say at this point, and I don't know what you usually keep a good handle on on our schedule. The Storm Cellar is all about, I mean, aside from the love of the Canes, it's all about the Caniacs and Jerks. And if you want a chance to join us, if you would like to join us, first of all, if you want a chance, it sounds like I'm making us to be, celebrities and stuff. That's not the case at all. We're just like you. And we want to hear
people
from
did
you.
recognize us by our voices at Stadium Series. Just throwing that out there.
No. That's true too. That is true too. But look, you can join us, and we want you to join us. We want to hear your story. We want to know how you became a Caniac. We want to hear your insights on this team. And it doesn't even have to be Hurricane fans, right? We've had guests.
Yeah, we've had other folks.
We've had other folks too. If you're listening to the program and you want to talk hockey and you want to, I mean, the Storm Cellar is great. It's comfortable, great seats. You can bring whatever kind of drink you want. I mean, for me, it's got to be orange juice because it's 8:00 or 8:30 in the morning when I start, and it's a little too early to start the drinking. But honestly, take some time, seek us out. How do they do that?
On Twitter at StormCellar97. On Blue Sky now, also StormCellar97. At Gmail, StormCellar97 @gmail.com. Or on Facebook at facebook.com/StormCellar97. So yeah, let us know, because we love talking to Caniacs and hearing Caniac stories. It's what we do different than anybody else who covers the Canes. And, the fans we've always said it's a small market team. The fans help drive the team. They really do in a small market. It's not Toronto where, they get, laughed at for being a quiet building because the whole lower bowl was full of corporate suits who may or may not care about hockey. They just want to be in the arena. That doesn't happen in Carolina. Nobody's showing up to a Hurricanes game to show off. If you're showing up to a Hurricanes game, it's because you love the team. And we want to hear from those people.
Absolutely. The fuel to the fire of this squad that makes us go, makes it the loudest barn in the building. And you hear every Hurricane player say the same thing. These fans are nuts. These fans love
in a good way.
I mean, they in a good way. Like that's exactly it. They just love it, and they love the fire that we bring, and that's why we like to shine the spotlight on the fans and the Caniacs and Jerks, right? That's why we shine the spotlight on them. You're part of this team too. Come talk to us.
Absolutely. Oh, that was a lot for not having anything to talk about, right?
Yeah, wasn't it? I mean, we've covered it all, and there's something missing though. Something we haven't done for a long time. I can't, Brad.
Oh, I know.
Yeah.
Go Canes.
Go Canes.
Thank you everyone for tuning in. Ray and I greatly appreciate your support in helping us produce an informative and fun podcast. As always, we'd like to say that we believe hockey is for everyone. Whether you're a Caniac or a bunch of jerks, doesn't matter, as we're just a couple of jerks anyway. We would love to hear your questions, comments, and suggestions. We will do our best to answer anything hockey related. You can reach us via email at stormcellar97@gmail.com. On Twitter, we are at stormcellar97, and on Facebook at facebook.com/stormcellar97.